I never imagined this would be the last time I saw him, but in that moment, I knew he was never coming back. It was a sunny morning, just like any other, when the change happened. I woke up to the sound of birds outside our window and the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. The kind of morning that always made me feel like everything was all right. But that morning, something felt different. He was sitting at the kitchen table looking out the window. His coffee cup was untouched, his hands resting still on the edge of the table. It wasn't like him to be so quiet. He always had something to say, always had a way of making me smile, even on the roughest days. But not today. I sat across from him, trying to figure out what was going on. The silence between us felt thick, almost as if there was a wall that I couldn't break through. He had a faraway look in his eyes, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. "I have something to tell you," he said quietly, his voice almost trembling. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. "What's wrong?" I asked, my heart suddenly racing. I couldn't explain it, but I knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary conversation. He took a deep breath and looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't read. "I've been thinking a lot lately, and I need to go away for a while." I stared at him, unable to speak. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. "What do you mean, go away? Where? Why?" His eyes looked away again, as if he couldn't bear to meet mine. I need space. I don't know how long it'll be, but I need to figure things out. I think we need some time apart." My heart dropped. I had never felt more alone than I did in that moment. We'd been through so much together, yet here he was, telling me he needed to leave. I tried to stay calm, but inside, I felt like everything was slipping away. I reached for his hand, but he pulled it back gently. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, his voice barely a whisper, but it was already too late. The next few days felt blurry. I couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. "I need space. We need some time apart." Those words kept repeating in my head. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought maybe he was just upset, and that he would change his mind. Maybe everything would go back to normal. But the more time passed, the more I realized he wasn't coming back. He didn't answer my calls, and he didn't even read the messages I sent. The space he wanted felt like it was turning into something bigger, and I started to feel like I was losing him. I tried to keep myself busy. I worked longer hours, hoping it would help me forget. But no matter what I did, he was always in my thoughts. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. I hadn't heard from him in so long. I quickly opened it, but when I read it, my heart sank. "I'm leaving. I've already packed my things." It was short. There is no explanation, no hope that things could be fixed. Just a few words that hurt more than I could explain. It was like I had been punched in the stomach. I didn't know what to do. My hands shook as I held the phone. I walked around the house, looking at everything that reminded me of him. The pictures we took together, the small things we had shared, all of it was still there. But it felt different. It felt empty. I went into the kitchen, where we used to have our coffee in the mornings. The chair across from me was empty now, and I realized he wasn't coming back. It was hard to breathe. I didn't know if I should cry or scream. He had already made his decision, and I was left with nothing but memories. I thought about all the good times we had shared, the quiet evenings, laughing together, and how he always held my hand. But now, it all felt so far away, like it never happened. The house felt cold and quiet. The silence felt different now, like it was here to stay. I didn't know if I'd ever hear his voice again. It was like he was already gone, and I was still here, trying to understand why. Days turned into weeks, but his silence didn't go away. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message or a call, but there was nothing. It felt like he had disappeared from my life completely. I couldn't believe how quickly everything had changed. One moment, we were fine, and the next, he was gone. I spent a lot of time thinking about what went wrong. Was there something I missed? Was I not enough for him? These thoughts kept running through my mind over and over. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? But no answer came. The questions just stayed there, hanging in the air, with no one to give me the answers I needed. It was painful. The not knowing was worse than anything. I had so many feelings inside: anger, sadness, confusion, but I didn't know who to talk to. Friends told me to be strong, to move on, but it wasn't that simple. I couldn't just turn off my feelings. I couldn't pretend like everything was okay. Every corner of the house reminded me of him. Every song on the radio brought back memories of us together. It was impossible to escape the feeling that something was missing. There were nights when I couldn't sleep and I would just stare at the ceiling, feeling lost. I thought about the last time we talked, the last time he hugged me. I remembered how he said, "I'll be back soon, I just need some time." But he didn't come back, and that hurt more than I could explain. I wanted to cry, but there were no more tears left. Instead, I sat in silence, feeling like a part of me was missing, like something important was gone, and I didn't know how to get it back. The silence in my house felt so loud. It was like I could hear my own heart breaking every day, but no one else could hear it. It felt like I was the only one left to deal with all the pain. I thought I could be strong and handle it, but the truth was, it was getting harder. It felt like I was losing myself, too. As the days went by, I started to realize something I wasn't ready to face before. He wasn't coming back. I had been holding on to hope, thinking maybe one day he would call, or show up at the door with an apology and an explanation. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I spent a lot of time just sitting, thinking, and trying to understand why it all happened. I had so many questions, but no answers. It was like trying to find your way in the dark. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe I was holding on to something that wasn't meant to be. Maybe I was holding on to someone who had already made up his mind. It hurt to let go. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I had to. I couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't there anymore. I couldn't keep living in the past, hoping things would go back to how they were. I remember the first time I took a step towards letting go. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot to me. I picked up a photo of us, one of the pictures we had taken on a trip. It was from a time when we were happy, when everything seemed perfect. I had kept it by my bedside, always looking at it before I went to sleep, reminding myself of the good times. But that day, I looked at it, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry or sad. I just felt calm. I put the photo away in a drawer. I didn't throw it out, I didn't want to forget the good memories, but I needed to stop living in them. I needed to start living in the present. The silence in the house was still there, but it wasn't as loud anymore. I didn't feel like I was drowning in it. I started to focus on myself again. I spent time with friends, worked on things I'd put aside, and tried to find happiness in the small moments. Letting go didn't mean I stopped caring about him. It didn't mean I didn't love him anymore. It just meant I was choosing to take care of myself. I was choosing to move forward, even if it was hard. It wasn't easy, and some days were harder than others, but I knew I had to keep going. Life was moving on, and so was I. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The pain slowly faded, but the memories stayed with me. They weren't as sharp anymore, but they were still there, like old scars that didn't hurt as much, but you could feel them if you touched the right spot. I realized that healing wasn't something that happened quickly. It was a slow, steady process, and sometimes it felt like I was taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but I was trying. I was learning to live without him, to find peace within myself. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I felt like I couldn't do it. On those days, I would let myself cry, feel the sadness, and then slowly pick myself up again. Crying didn't mean I was weak. It just meant I was still human. I began to focus more on my own life. I started a new hobby that I had always wanted to try but never had the time for. I joined a painting class, and at first I felt awkward, but over time, it became something I enjoyed. Painting was a way for me to express myself, to pour my feelings onto the canvas instead of keeping them inside. I also reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with when I was so wrapped up in my relationship. It felt good to laugh again, to talk about things that had nothing to do with him or what happened. It was like I was rediscovering a part of myself that I had forgotten. There were still moments when I missed him, of course. There were still nights when I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what could have been. But those thoughts didn't take over my life anymore. They didn't control me. I realized that life had moved on, and I had to move with it. I started setting new goals for myself, small goals, like getting back into shape or planning a trip by myself. They weren't huge things, but they made me feel like I was moving forward, like I was taking back control of my life. I knew I would never forget him, and I didn't want to. But I also knew that I had to let go of the person I thought he was, the person I thought I would always be with. It was time to embrace who I was becoming and trust that the future had something better in store for me. And with each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more at peace. The healing was happening, even if I couldn't always see it. A year had passed since he left. It felt like both a lifetime and a blink of an eye. I had grown a lot during that time. It wasn't always easy, and there were still days when the weight of the past would feel too heavy to carry. But I had learned to keep moving forward, even on the hard days. One afternoon, while walking through the park, I met someone new. His name was Sam. He was kind and funny, with a smile that felt warm and genuine. At first, I didn't think much of it. I had no intention of jumping into a new relationship. But Sam was different. He didn't push me, didn't try to rush anything. He respected my space and understood that I wasn't looking for anything serious. We started talking more, meeting up for coffee, sharing stories about our lives. Slowly, I began to trust him, though I still carried the fear of being hurt again. Sam never pressured me. He let me be myself, with all my scars, my past, and my healing process. It was refreshing to have someone who accepted me just as I was. One evening, we sat by the lake, watching the sun set. It was peaceful, and I felt a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. We talked about everything and nothing, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile without the weight of my past holding me back. That night, Sam held my hand. I didn't pull away. I didn't feel the need to rush into anything, but I knew that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to open up again. I wasn't forgetting about the past or pretending it didn't matter, but I was ready to allow someone new into my life, in my own time and at my own pace. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I had come a long way from the person I used to be. The pain, the tears, the heartbreak, those things had shaped me, but they didn't define me. I was stronger now. I was ready for whatever came next. And though I didn't know where this journey with Sam would lead, I was no longer afraid of the future. Life had a way of surprising me, and I was learning to embrace its unexpected twists and turns. As time went on, I started to feel like I was finally in a place where I could be at peace with everything that had happened. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. I didn't need to have all the answers or know exactly what the future would look like. I had learned that life didn't follow a set plan, and sometimes the unexpected turns were what led to the most beautiful moments. With Sam, things continued to grow slowly but steadily. We spent more time together, getting to know each other deeper, sharing parts of ourselves we hadn't shown anyone else. He became someone I could lean on, not as a replacement for the past, but as a partner who respected and supported my journey. One evening, as we walked through the same park where we'd first met, I realized how much I had changed. The girl who was once lost, who couldn't imagine a life without the person she thought she'd always be with, had transformed. She had found herself again, piece by piece, and was standing tall. I knew I wasn't the same person who had sat in the quiet of her apartment, heartbroken and unsure of where to go next. I had grown, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to live fully again. I wanted to be someone who wasn't defined by the pain she had endured. I wanted to be whole. Sam looked at me that day and smiled, his eyes filled with understanding. "You've come so far," he said softly. "You should be proud of yourself." I smiled back, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I am. I really am." We didn't need to say anything else. In that moment, I knew that whatever came next, I was ready. I had learned to embrace the future, to take each day as it came. I wasn't waiting for someone to fix me anymore. I had already done the hard work myself. The past would always be a part of me, but it no longer had control over my life. I had found a way to live with it, to heal from it, and to move on. And the best part was that I knew I wasn't alone anymore. I had Sam by my side, but more importantly, I had myself. Looking ahead, I didn't know exactly what the future held, but I had learned one important thing. I was strong enough to face it, and no matter what came my way, I was ready to embrace it with an open heart. If you found yourself relating to this story, or if it touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever gone through a similar experience? Drop a comment below and share your journey with us. And remember, no matter what you've been through, you're never alone. Stay strong and take care of yourself. See you in the next video.